Joining me now is Shahram Hadian, born and raised in Iran, pastor. He's been a police officer. He joins us now to talk about the talks that have been breaking down with Iran. Now it seems as though there's talks that have been scheduled for this Friday. Joining me now is Shahram Hadian. Shahram, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Good to be back with you, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so we were talking on radio today at 1 o'clock Central. I think you were listening because you were texting me. The talks were breaking down. President Trump is in the Oval Office saying the leader of Iran should be very, very worried. Where are we at with the talks? Because Iran sounds like they're just really not willing to negotiate on some very key issues. And it looked like everything was going to fall apart. Now, apparently, President Trump is getting pushback from some Arab nations to go to talks this Friday in Oman. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. The talks have moved from Turkey to Oman. And you're correct that the pushback is constantly there from these Arab Muslim nations to continue negotiation. What the Iranian regime has said is that the only thing we're going to talk about is dealing with our nuclear aspirations. They're not going to talk about anything that deals with what's going on inside the country, what's going on with the massacre of its people. You had the numbers that Aaron mentioned on air, which is shocking, I know, when he mentioned the 86,000 massacred potentially. But I said to you a couple of weeks ago that I think before this is said and done, we potentially could be in six figures. So I don't think that's shocking. When the regime itself says 30,000 they confirm, you know you can double or triple that number safely, and that's not including the secret executions and all those that are being killed in the hospitals and subsequently later. What I just don't understand, Brandon, is I don't understand how we keep getting into this mess of setting up talks, of setting up, quote, deals, of setting up negotiation. I get it on face value if the United States or Israel is going to attack Iran. And what Aaron broke at the end of your radio segment today about that now there's word that Iran is going to go offense instead of defense, again, to some extent is not surprising. But if the United States and Israel is setting up a scenario where, well, hey, we got to try, right? We got to try to make it look like we're going to talk before we have to strike them. Okay, I get that on paper. But in reality, this regime and Islam as a whole continues. It's the same rabbit trail. It's the same deception. It's the same stall tactic. We see they're buying time. They're moving assets potentially out of Iran. We see certain Iranian officials being granted asylum in other countries. I think the regime is done. The problem is, how will it be done, and how many people need to die for it to be done? So yes, right now it's scheduled for Friday in Oman, but if they're only going to talk about, quote, the nuclear aspirations and not the brutal massacre and genocide of their own people, and the fact that they cannot take care of their own people, then what is there to talk about? That's what I don't understand.
Well, and I know you're not a military expert per se. I'm certainly not. That's why I interview a lot of guys that are. But I'm reading articles that say that America better realize that we would have a hard time, our U.S. Navy would have a hard time fighting Iran in their waters, just getting resupplied with weaponry, armament. You know, they're talking about the fact that this is a much bigger issue to fight Iran in their waters, off their shores, than the American people are being told. And I heard last week that President Trump, and again, these are reports that were coming out, kind of was backing down when it came to Iran with the, hey, help us on the way kind of thing, because maybe he got a very serious assessment from some military guys saying, you know, this is what their capabilities are. And maybe in the end we'll win, but we could lose a ship or two. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm reading articles from guys that are historians and military guys and geopolitical guys who have researched this for years saying this is not as easy as one might think it is.
I don't disagree with that statement. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be easy. First of all, this regime has had 47 years to
Right.
fortify itself. Number one, this regime has been propped up by China, by Russia, by the Europeans, including now potentially Turkey, and of course the Arab Emirate nations. And this regime has proxies. You heard Aaron talk about the Houthis rearming. I never thought that if they were going to attack, it would be easy. Plus, the grave mistake that the United States made and Trump made is by not allowing Israel to continue what they were doing back in June of last year. That has given them time to also regroup and refortify and reassess their tactics, because Israel was decimating their upper leadership. Israel was decimating all of their command and control structure, which would have then softened the blow. I mean, remember when Israel hit back in June, it wasn't one day, right? It was multiple. First of all, this is why earlier this week, when you saw those explosions in Iran, and I know you had Annie on to talk about that, it immediately reminded me of last June, because what did we see last June? We saw the same things inside the country, very weird explosions. The regime was claiming there were gas lines. Yeah, gas lines exploding in 9 different cities. So immediately I thought, okay, that is potentially the Israeli element of what's inside the country. Again, softening the way. They're kind of putting those blows in there to soften the way. But Israel, it was a concentrated multiple day attack, which would have needed to continue had the U.S. not intervened. So no way this is going to be easy, and no way is Iran not going to launch their proxies. Here's my point. The point is, if they don't do it now, then when? Because whether they do it now or whether this goes down the road another year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and the Iranian people were massacred for nothing. Help is on the way. 3 weeks. It's now been over, 3 weeks and 1 day since the president said help is on the way. If help is not on the way, then that was an absolute waste of young people and lives that will go down, I think, in infamy as far as a failure of this administration, maybe bigger than Jimmy Carter's betrayal back in 1977 and 78 and 79. So I never thought it was going to be easy if the United States was going to hit. And I agree with you. It's a major blow when those Arab Emirate nations that you said earlier on radio are buying out America. Look at the Qataris. When those countries said you cannot use our bases, our air bases, and you cannot fly over our territory, that then pigeonholed the only way that the United States can do this is to go off from the waters. And that also creates a problem. So that makes me mad, because why are we allowing those entities and those nations all the access in America, allowing them to buy us out when we need those assets and when we need that access, they're saying, no way, we're not going to give it to you. So it's complicated things for sure. But Brandon, I don't know where else to go from here. It's either now, or I don't know if there's going to be another chance like this to take this regime out that's affecting the entire world.
Well, the question is, though, how many ballistic missiles do they have? I just pulled up a report from June of 2025 from the Times of Israel. They have thousands, apparently. Top Netanyahu aide says Iran still has thousands of ballistic missiles, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 ballistic missiles they still have. So, again, I don't know. And how many of these are nuclear tipped? How many nuclear tipped missiles do they have?
Well, that's part of the question is I think if they go down that road, the only place they're getting those is from whether they bought it off of North Korea, whether they've gotten it from China or Russia. But listen, that then opens the door for a more broader war, right? Which I don't know if China or Russia is ready to get into. I know some people want to sort of fearmonger about this is World War III, this is World War III. Again, I disagree, because Iran is a very different animal. I don't mean the regime, I mean the people. I don't necessarily think that this would be a even a regional war if it was to happen. But will there be loss? For sure. Are U.S. warships at risk? For sure. Because again, thanks to the Qataris and the Saudis and the Arab Emirates not cooperating with us, this has made this much harder. And some people say, well, we had to wait. Yeah, we had to wait because we didn't have those resources, right? We had to wait because we couldn't get our planes over there to be able to then hit Iran from those areas. We had to go to sea. We had, and again, like you said, I'm not a military expert, but common sense would say, well, if you can't go by land, if you can't fly those planes in by land, you got to go by sea. So now that takes a long time to get these armadas and these flotillas, or their naval carriers and everything into the region, which is what we've seen over the last three weeks. So, but my point is, the U.S. government, and particularly I took offense to the clip from Rubio, because though I like Rubio, it makes me so upset when this guy keeps saying, oh, it's economic, it's economic, it's economic. This is not economic, dude. And I'm not saying dude to you. I'm saying to our Secretary of State, Mark Rubio, it is not economic. Are they not even listening to what the Iranian people are shouting? Are they not even listening to what the diaspora, with these massive rallies that we've seen outside the country in Europe and in North America, are shouting when they're saying down with Khomeini, down with the dictators, down with Islam, Javid Shah, long live the Shah. So what this is, yes, okay. In December, it initially started as economic strikes. That lasted 3 or 4 days. It then immediately turned into, we are done with Islam, we are done with this regime. And so that frustrates me, Brandon, because they're minimizing not only the cries of the Iranian people, not only the sacrifice of the Iranian people, let's not forget, almost 50% of Iran is under the age of 30. So the majority, the hyper majority of those that have been massacred are young people because of simply those demographics. So it is absolutely an insult to what has happened and the massacre and the lives that have been lost if you make it an economic issue. Oh, they just can't feed their people. That's why the people are mad. I mean, that is poor diplomacy, and it is an insult to the Iranian people. And in fact, in my opinion, it's an insult to us as Americans here, because we got to be smarter than that. This is Iranian people telling the American people, hey, you know what? We're done with Islam. How about you guys in America? How about you guys in America stop kissing up to the Muslims, stop kissing up to the Islamic movement, stop placating them, stop giving them bases, stop giving them access, stop giving them access to your schools and your media and your universities. I mean, this is just a matter of deep frustration right now, because I hear all sides of it and I get it. We're going to have casualties. They're going to launch their proxies. All of that is real. I don't think any of that's going to change whether we attack them now or we attack them in 2 years. Wow. This is, I think, the hour, Brandon. This is the hour. Because why is this the hour? Because the Iranian people made it the hour. The Iranian people, by shedding their blood, if it is 86,000, as Aaron said earlier, 86,000, mostly young people, have made it clear this is the hour. So history will judge America, Trump, and what the world does, in this hour.
TILministry.com, TILministry.com. Great analysis tonight by American Iranian, Shahram Hadian. His daddy was high-ranking in the military there in Iran, got out 6 weeks before the fall of the Shah because he didn't want to live under Sharia Islamic law. And he has been trying to warn America about what's coming. And by the way, are you following this Qatari city in Arizona? I got a phone call today from a listener in Arizona warning about it. We covered it with Annie the other day. Are you following this Qatar city in Arizona?
Absolutely. And what I had said last year is I believe that what you're witnessing with these cities that are popping up, that they're either funded by Qatar, in this case in Arizona, or potentially from other foreign entities, the Pakistanis in Texas, the Saudis. I believe these are these smart cities that they're merging with the globalists, in my opinion. They're merging with that Agenda 23, Agenda 2030 sort of plan, and they're being greenlit to launch these cities. So I just asked the question: how much more access can you give to your enemy within your nation before the judgment of God says, I'm out? You know, God's hand says, I'm out. You're on your own, America. You're on your own, people of America. So you've said it so many times. This is part of, I think, the deception, the judgment on America. We are falling for this. So yes, I'm tracking that there as well. This is new strategy, right?
And by the way, while we're talking, you got the World Summit going on in United Arab Emirates, right?
Yeah, right there. Right. Exactly. Right.
So the World Government Summit is run by the Muslims in the UAE.
Exactly. Exactly. This is the Islamic movement right in the center of the global governance, the global economy. They're right in the center of that beast system that Revelation 13 talks about. And therefore, they're being greenlit to put forth these cities. They want to do it over there in their part of the world, but why not do it here in America or in Gaza, right? The Gaza plan, which looks like a smart city. It's what they're being greenlit to do. And I think that, unfortunately, we're falling for it. So the Patriots in Arizona better wake up and understand. Texas, Arizona, here in Tennessee, this is the kind of stuff we're going to start seeing from this foreign money. We got to shut it down and say, stop with this foreign money and these foreign governments being able to buy up our nation.
Amen. TILministry.com, Shahram Hadian, TILministry.com. Thank you, Shahram.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Shahram Hadian checking in. Check out his site. He also is on our broadcast network here each and every weekend at worldviewtube.com. We'll be right back.